Great, and we are live. So this is good, guys. So yeah, this is actually a topic I only do one time a year because we're heading into the season when it's going to be the most outdoor activity we'll ever do. And it's summer, right? We love it. It's a great time. Having been through this several times, I see seasonal stressors happen to people as we care for them. And they come around and you can almost predict when they're going to happen. For example, it seems to happen whenever the weather changes. I have people come in and they'll say, Doc, I have no idea what happened last night, but I went to bed feeling just fine. And when I woke up, I had this terrible neck ache, and then I realized I've just seen like 5 or 10 people in the past 3 days have had the exact same thing. It's usually because something happened during their sleep. They were trying to stay warm, or they were getting too warm and kicking covers off. I just learned to predict that. So I finally decided I just need to address these things going into the season so that we can be proactive. Because our healthcare system is basically based on reactivity, would you say? Like most times you don't think about your health until it's lost. And then you say, I'll do whatever I have to do to get it back. It's crisis care. Chiropractors have always thought proactively and trying to help people stay healthy and making sure you give your body what it needs. If I can do that through a class like this in 30 minutes, and we can really change your chances of actually having a very fun season and hopefully no injuries. We just had a little girl come in today who actually was jumping around the sofa with her brothers recently, and sure enough, came in with a sling and some pins in and a cast, right? So that's not necessarily a seasonal strain, it's more of a season of life strain. Mm-hmm. But I want to make sure that I do the best I can to help everybody enjoy their health and still have fun doing it too. So we'll cover this thing. We always know that our health is our most valuable asset. As you say, once it's lost, they say reason is powerless and money is useless, right? You just have to make sure that you do what you can to keep your health intact, because it affects so many other things. Stress definitely affects your health for good or for bad. We know that certain stressors like weightlifting are good for us, right? You put your body through the paces and your body responds by growing stronger. But long, unrestricted stress, like say a bad relationship or losing a parent or something like this to death, these things are not good for us. Stress comes to us in 3 primary forms. We'll cover those things. If you adapt well to stress, we know for sure you get stronger. If you don't adapt, if it becomes chronic and relenting, you actually get weaker. The result of stress will be something less than 100% function. And when you have less than normal function, you actually have a reduced quality of life. And so if we can actually help you guys see where these sources of stress come from in this season and actually find either alternates to do things or better ways to do them or avoid them entirely, we're going to be very happy with the results of that thing. So we focus on kids in this talk because you guys actually are probably at the point where you'll be thinking about taking care of grandkids soon enough too, right? Well, they're kids no matter what age. And so they're our most valuable asset. We want to make sure we protect those things. I love this quote that says that nothing you ever do for children is ever wasted. That's exactly sure. I think it's from Garrison Keillor. Native Americans have a saying that says, we didn't inherit the earth from our parents, we're actually borrowing it from our kids. So we want to make sure we care for them and the planet they're going to live on better. And then lastly, we are all responsible for kids' safety. You notice how there's kind of like, for example, let me think here. Yes, like our church, we actually have a functioning daycare in there, and we actually make sure that everybody understands how to make sure the entire church stays safe. We have some key people that are our people who actually are responsible for the intake, and of the kids in the church Sunday school program. But everybody's responsible for kid safety. If you see a kid behaving in a way that's unsafe or unhealthy, that's not good. And then lastly, anything that's good for kids does have implications for adults, and many times it's usually easier because adults can understand more so and take better care of themselves as well too. So is this what I mean by taking care of ourselves? And this is so funny. I love this one. It says, I often worry about the safety of my children, especially the one that's rolling their eyes at me and talking back right now, right? There's somebody who's cruising for some trouble. That's not what we mean, obviously, right? We focus on summer because here's what we often find is that this time of year, kids actually have less supervision, right? They're pretty much in a controlled environment from about 8 to 3, right? The teachers have them. It's either on the playground or in the classroom. And sometimes kids are outside and they're just tooling around the neighborhood, right? They'll run around the block, whatever have you. Number 2, there's more free time in the school year. And sometimes free time means what? I find ways to get in trouble, right? Say, Mom, I'm bored, and boredom is usually the problem. There's more activities, especially outdoors. And lastly, things that involve things like the elements, being exposed to elements, and of course, speed. Right, so a lot easier to get in trouble going down a hill at 35 on a bike than, say, just playing in the snowbank or something like that. So our family definitely does deserve to be taken care of well. So one thing we also know for sure is that when your why is big enough, the what and how are easier too. So if you know that you value your family and you want to actually be around them and be as healthy as possible in good health, then we just need to put on our thinking caps and say, how can we best take care of our health in this time when we have these different stressors? And we're actually going to do this kind of as a group. So when I throw up the question, I want you guys to throw out some ideas you may have, either things you've successfully done in the past or you can see yourself using in the near future. I'm going to turn on these fans too, guys, because it's just a little bit warm in here. It's cool enough outside that we don't have as much air movement here. Okay, good. So, stressors come in 3 forms. The first chiropractors, going back to the 1895, actually said there's 3 types of things that we have that can create stress in our bodies that will eventually cause it to actually break down if it's not taken care of. One would be physical stressors. So they call those things traumas. That could be something as simple as, I'm simply sitting here playing on my iPad for 2 hours. That's a type of stress we never had before. Like I think the most I ever had as a kid might have been a handheld video game. And I think my parents kind of restricted me to maybe an hour of that per day. Now we got kids who play games for 7 hours a day or whatever have you. Number two would be chemical stressors or toxins. So, a kid who drinks a gallon of Kool-Aid, that kind of sugar stress will definitely cause some problems there too. Sunscreens that have unhealthy things in them. And of course there's mental thoughts too, or mental stressors such as thoughts. So again, the idea of being bored in summer, or maybe in a situation where kids are being unrestricted, there's actually some bullying going on, right? There's a mental stress for a kid too, right? And a lot of times those things aren't handled so well. So just remember the initials PCM, or the 3 T's, and you actually have right there. So physical stressors come in forms like this. Now obviously we're not going to be playing ice hockey unless you actually are playing indoors this time of year. But auto accidents can happen, different types of physical things like, taking care of your lawn. This would be like for parents, maybe having to do their taxes, or a kid, maybe some kids do take summer school, falling asleep in a sleeping bag the wrong way. All these things would create stress. The result of that is going to be something that would look like this. Either you're going to have a proper response, which your body is able to handle it just fine. Maybe you sleep wrong in your sleeping bag and you wake up and say, man, if I just stretch, I'm good. There could be a significant reaction where you actually have some type of muscle ache that lasts for a long time. I just had somebody come in today who, again, he told me that his idea how he did it. He woke up just with a terrible cramp in his neck. He said, I can hardly go this way. And this is a football player. This guy's pretty darn tough. And I had to do a lot of work on him. And that would be an improper response or a minor reaction. The big one would be if your spine actually misaligns and stays that way. And that's the worst thing that can happen. You have that chronic nerve stress that happens from the insult that happened to your body, and now you actually have the nerves not telling muscles or organs or anything in your body to work correctly. You're creating havoc in your health over the long time. It's a short in the system. It's a short in the panel, as we'd say. So I'll see if I can get this to come up, guys. This is a fun little video. Do kids have physical trauma? And if I can get this to work, it's going to be a great thing. If it doesn't work, I may have to just skip it. It worked earlier today. Let me see how this works. Oh, is it going to do it? Yes, here we go. I think we're in luck. Okay. So different types of stressors kids have. 2 minutes of fun here. See him coming. Get you. No.
He laughs.
I tried that bill, we probably would be laughing. Is that crazy? So do these things happen? Yes. They did actually verified on video, right? And of course the problem is that we laugh at it and then they think, oh, the kid's just fine, right? And then 20 years later, 30 years later, they've been in a chiropractic office. I asked these kids questions, or people now, grown adults, hey, what have you had any history of trauma? They can't even remember it. And then they'll think, oh yeah, there was that one time. But the parents still assume, well, the kid was feeling better within a day or so, no problem. And actually what they were left with a chronic subluxation that wasn't hurting them until just now. The classic example I can think of is a guy who in his 20s actually had a chassis fall on top of him. They were restoring a car. When I met him, he was in his 50s having daily migraine headaches. I mean, these were like so bad that he would actually have to stop work around 1 in the afternoon. He would go into a dark room and actually shoot himself with Imitrex and take like Tylenol like it was going out of style. 3 hours in there, he'd finally throw up and he was just done the rest of the day. And I said, how often does this happen? It was like 6 or 7 days a week. And I talked to him and he said, yeah, I have no history of trauma, because I looked at his x-rays and his head was so far to one side. I thought, how does a person ever get their head over that far without some type of trauma? With his significant other, his girlfriend, gives him the old elbow and says, did you tell about the time that a car fell on your head? And you think a car falling on somebody's head, you would probably remember that, but he had forgotten that a chassis sitting on a jack had actually fallen on top of him on the floor, and his friends took the car off of him, the chassis off of him, and he said, I was laying there, and the ambulance, or the 911 people said, don't move him because he might have broken his neck, and they took him to the hospital. They gave him a soft collar and said, good news, we took the x-rays, you have no broken bones, you just have a really bad strain sprain, so here's your muscle relaxer, your painkiller, and your or your anti-inflammatory, which he wore faithfully and took faithfully for 2 or 3 months, but he healed with his head like this.
Wow.
And so 30 years later, it shows up with these massive migraines. So that's what I'm getting at, is that these things need to be checked out. So I just put in some possible examples of summer traumas we may go through. So certainly increased sun exposure. Anybody here had a sunburn yet from driving around? Okay, not so yet, okay. High-speed things that don't have much protection, like biking and skateboarding, sports and sport camps, swimming for sure, trampolines. You know, if you have a trampoline, according to my friend, and you're a homeowner, your rates go up. Just having a trampoline on property, because there's more things that happen. Climbing and hiking, sitting during travel, long periods of time like that. Of course, video games are reading. So look at that list there and just think, is there anything that either you or kids that you care about in your family actually participate in that you might say that could be a potential issue? Is there even one pop in your head?
Oh, yeah, sports.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Yeah.
So how about we actually lower risk of those things there? Like, give me an idea, Dick. What could you do actually to lower kids' chances of actually having some type of negative event happening from those things there? What do you think?
I suppose make sure he understands the rules and regulations before he gets on.
That'd be a big one.
Yeah.
That's right. And just, I think another one is just overall conditioning. I know this was kind of an era, I think, Bill, when Joe was growing up, is that you see kids increasingly specialize. Like they're targeted for, this kid's a great baseball player at 8 years of age, and all of a sudden it's no longer all different sports, it's just one sport. They might have to change from fall ball to skills camp in the winter to spring ball and summer ball, but they're playing one sport the whole time, and actually overuse injuries happen, right? And I'm actually seeing now 2 things. One is where kids are burning out at younger ages. Like they're at 15, they say, I'm just done, I don't want to play anymore. And number 2 is these overuse injuries. You're seeing things in younger, like, Tommy John surgery being done on a high schooler.
Yeah.
That should never happen. That's a classic sign of overuse, right? So I think being a more well-rounded athlete, and certainly overall conditioning is going to help out there too. And yes, for sure, Dick, that's exactly right. Being aware of the quality of competition you're going against, and actually the rules of the game that would actually lead to problems there, that's for sure, okay? So number 2 is going to be environmental stressors, things that would come from the outside, like chemical type stressors. So it could be something as, overall, as much as like air quality. Thankfully, Lincoln has pretty decent air, and then if you're out playing outside in Los Angeles on a bad day, it may be a very different story. Okay, our food supply, increasingly have things sprayed on there. Things we have to cake on our skins to keep from getting burned, and of course food, which we have a lot of control over, all have different things in them. So once again, a proper response might be that your body actually fills and actually gets rid of some things, right? I mean, actually, in chiropractic thinking and in worldview, if you actually have, say, eat some tainted food because mom left the hamburgers out too long in the patio during the picnic, a proper response is to actually throw it out. That's good, you're getting rid of stuff, right? A lesser reaction might be you have some sort of chronic reaction, like say an allergy that develops or something like that, or sneezing. And then a big one would be actually getting a migraine or irritable bowel syndrome or something like this that would actually be a more chronic issue that has to be addressed. So summer toxins, once again, things like dehydration can happen, right? It can happen it's almost heard of it. They say by the time you feel thirsty, it's almost too late. So you gotta make sure you stay hydrated. Number 2, eating fast food and junk food out and about, driving around, or picking up food as opposed to eating good stuff. There's questions about whether using charcoal, especially when it really gets to be blackened meat, if that's not maybe a potential carcinogen for us. Number 4 would be spoiled foods that are out too long. 5, sunscreen and bug repellents. I don't like getting sunburns or getting eaten by bugs, but some of those things that they put in those things are not exactly toxin-free, let's put it that way. And then lawn fertilizers and pesticides. I like a nice green lawn, but some of the things that they put in there, do you guys know that atrazine kills bugs by actually paralyzing their central nervous system? It actually causes bugs to actually eat their brains and nerves to go into, essentially shock.
Roundup.
Yeah,
I
Roundup.
thought that's why all that fallen was.
Yeah, from the
Roundup.
herbicides, right? Yeah, herbicide exposure like that too. So those are things that we don't have at high content around us at all, and detox if we need to, because those things get deeply embedded in our tissues. And then lastly, things like using chlorine. There's a big reason why A lot of your major hotels now actually have switched to saline as opposed to chlorine for the pools because it's easier on it's easier on the planet. It's also easier on the clients that swim there too. So do any of those things apply to you guys? Can you think of in your family situations that you might encounter this summer?
Sunscreen for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
you bet. So what I can suggest for you there, Bill, like an idea for that potentially would be like going to some place like, say, Red Clover or Trader Joe's and look for things that actually have things that are not toxic to your skin. There's just great places out there. There's actually an all-natural skin salon that just opened up here at 56 and Old Cheney too. Everything they use there as far as hair dyes, shampoos, things like that is completely toxin-free. So it's nice to have that around there. And I think it's been driven by consumers. Consumers are actually asking for it. They just say, oh, if I've seen my peers getting sick from this stuff, they don't have their kids go through the same thing too. The last category we'll cover is just going to be mental or emotional stressors. I mean, there's various things. Certainly, losing a loved one is a tough one. Relationship strife, hearing a bad diagnosis, economic downturns. All these things will make our bodies react in some way. And many times, we're reacting in the same way that you would as if a bear is chasing you. It's called the fight or flight response, but there is no outlet for it. So it becomes pent up, and therefore we start to get this really tough wear and tear in our bodies from the inside out. So once again, emotional stress are the proper responses. I deal with it and we move on. Number two would be I carry it for a long time and have some sort of tension in my life, maybe even muscle tension that produces a headache or whatever. If it's unchecked in some way, chronically elevated blood pressure, or potentially having ulcer or digestive distress would be there too. So I put down again some things for summer that can be big issues. I mentioned some of these before. Unstructured time. Kids don't have the skills unless they're guided by older people to show them how to take unstructured time and make it productive, right? Because that's done for them all school year. You show up at 8 o'clock, it's English, then math, and social studies, you can go right through the thing, and the day's divided for you. They need some guidance. So actually one thing I've done with my kids, I'll tell about that later. Let me get through the list first. Boredom, certainly for that whole thing there. Number three, unsupervised time. So sometimes it kind of ends up looking like the Lord of the Flies or the King of the Hill. When kids are left supervised, the big kids kind of lord it over the small ones. More time with siblings, that can be a good thing. It may not be. In my case, I got along with my sister growing up extremely well. We never hardly ever fought, but I hear about some of these families where like, man, you got to go to their separate corners and ring the bell and right how they come. Situational bullying, where kids take over. We just had a situation happen in my son's life. We're at a gathering. One little guy started kind of taking over the show, and we had to talk to him about that. Less structured learning environment to an excess. So a lot of times you hear these teachers say when the kids come back to school in the fall, it's like they didn't study anything all summer. They almost like they forgot everything they learned last year. So we're trying to make sure we don't have that in our family by having some things on the way. And then also the anticipation of it coming up in the school year, the back to school phenomenon. So that can be a great thing. In fact, I find a lot of times kids are actually asking for more structure when it comes to August. We're like, I'm kind of done with summer now. It's time to get back to learning and stuff like that. So it's great. So anything on that list that you think might apply to your family right now?
My family right
Yes. Maybe not your immediate family, Dick. You marry pretty good, but,
Yeah,
but how about like grandkids or
just the
anything?
two of us.
Yeah. Any grandkids or nieces that might apply to?
Well, bullying, we've had,
Have you?
some of the grandkids have had some of that issue.
Wow. How'd you deal with it, Bill?
Well, we didn't really have to, the kids did.
How did the parents deal with it?
They went to the school and talked
Did
to
they?
them, yeah.
And did it have a good outcome?
Not really, they changed schools,
Oh, wow.
so. The principals and the teachers agreed with the bullier, and that way they didn't have to deal with it, other than say, oh, we're not gonna get involved.
Ouch.
So-
That hurts to hear. That's too bad. That's too
So
bad.
they changed schools,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, here's the thing. It's a disruption to the life of your family, for sure, those
Yeah.
kids. And that kid who's bullying, who doesn't learn the lesson at this stage in life, when he gets to be, he becomes a majority and starts acting that way, I think he can learn, he's just heading for
They
trouble.
don't handle it like we used to handle it.
No.
We used to take care of it, and
Yeah.
we go
Yeah.
on,
Right.
and so.
There's so much wrong with that situation, Dick. I don't know what to say. So
Yeah.
I'm glad they're not in that particular thing for the short term. And I think for them, in the long term, they'll be better, obviously, being away from that. But the best thing they could do to serve that kid who's the bullier is to teach him a hard but true lesson right now and break him of that pattern if they can. Oh, that's hard to hear. Well, with our thing, my kids, I really like to see them developing their skills. And in fact, they both learned that to be good at anything in life, you have to spend about 10,000 hours to become a master of it. So think about 10,000 hours. Now, if we started right now, you'd say, I'm not sure I have that kind of time. But man, when you're like 8, 9, 10 years old, the world's your oyster. And I'm like, if you spend an hour a day doing something, kiddo, from now on to this thing, just imagine how good you'd be at it. I told my son this. I said, if you want to be good at basketball, if you spend as much time playing basketball as you do doing Minecraft on your computer, think about how good your ball handling skills are. He's thought about that while he's like, yeah, Dad, I want to spend at least this much time every day playing basketball all summer, so we actually made it kind of a schedule for him. It's going to be great. So he knows he's got about 3 hours of time he needs to invest in things he wants to get better at, and then once he's done, guess what, bud? Free time is yours. Have at it. Enjoy summer, right? So he'll be great, and he'll enjoy it when he gets better at it too. So the stressors, again, we can reduce and respond. Reduce the stressors that you can, or respond to the stressors that you cannot change better, right? Like there's certain situations you can't change. One of my friends I practiced with in Florida, Dr. Bill Lerner, got stuck in traffic one time at the airport. He remembers thinking to himself, I can either become frustrated or fascinated, right? I can either say, wow, this will maybe make me late, or fascination, like I've never seen this many cars on the road at one time. I'm setting a world record here, right? It's your choice. So if you choose to do nothing, the problem is that your body responds with this sort of stress response, and often subluxations will occur. The spine, rather than maintaining its normal shape and keeping nerves healthy, will cause a misalignment that will affect, yes, for sure, the joints and discs. That's bad enough. That's the arthritic kind of degenerative thing of the spine. But what's most concerning about subluxations is not the bones themselves or the joints or the soft tissues. If subluxations only affected that part, it would be about as serious as a cavity. But when you think about the fact that it's nerves inside there that are being affected now, whatever's at the end of this nerve is going to have some serious issues. It could be my spleen, it could be a muscle, it could be an immune organ. Until that situation is taken care of, we actually have a power outage going on. And so I'm talking to two people who know their stuff with regards to that. Right? We have a powered plant over here, a light bulb on the end. That switch is going to determine how much power gets through there. And so any type of subluxation is actually like a dimmer switch, making this less effective on this end here. Now pain certainly is an important warning sign. If you're getting to the point where a condition has hit that fever pitch, it's important, but appreciate that's only just a small portion of it, maybe 15 or 20% of your nerves overall have to do with pain, which means you could literally have between 70 and 80% malfunction of a nerve and still not feel it. This is the reason I've been checking my kids ever since they were born. I actually had this conversation with somebody today because we took care of a little, gosh, what is he? He's 9-month-old today. And the person actually asked me, he says, how early can you check a child for subluxation? I said, well, I checked my kids the first week they were born. My daughter was her first day. My son, I checked him on day 3. And pretty much I can say with certainty that either every week or every other week they've been getting checked for subluxations all their lives. But they're pretty darn healthy kids. They still have the occasional sniffles and things like that too, but these kids have done so well.
Did they ever have ear infections or anything like that?
I think we've had one between the two of them in their entire lives, Bill.
Because Joe, we didn't know about, getting them adjusted, so he ended up having tubes.
Yeah.
Because he had so many ear infections. And then with Jessie, she started having ear infections, and we got her adjusted. She never had none.
Isn't that great? Yeah. I mean, I think actually, Bill, there's some cool stories we have. We actually will tell those in our September talk that we do on chiropractic miracles. They're not really miracles; they're just the body working the way it's supposed to. But I can honestly say the thing I'm most proud of in my practice are these kids who started at that young age. Like we actually had a family just this past year bring their child by the office on the way home from the hospital before they got the kid home to get checked out, like the first day. And what that kid will not develop in their lifetime, like the things they were headed towards that they would have had they not get checked out, that's to me the greatest thing you can give a kid for a gift. That's a true miracle that a kid would dodge. Imagine if a kid in this day and age made it past all those years, gets to 80 or 85 and has had no cancer, no heart disease, no type 2 diabetes, no bone or joints replaced. I mean, that wouldn't be amazing. That's like a true miracle. It's like an oddity in our culture. But if you raise a kid right and teach them how to care for the body well, they actually can avoid it. So that's I'm glad you learned that, Bill. Where did you learn about that between the first and second kid? How'd you hear about it?
I can't remember who, unless the chiropractor I was using at that time mentioned it or whatever.
That is so cool, Bill. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's why I took these kids out. Now this is really nice. This gives you an idea. Other things in life, we finely tune. We know when a guitar is going to tune. If you've ever been to a concert and somebody has not tuned the piano, it's like, ooh, that's not good, right? Or things like a cello or electronics equipment or iPad or anything we use there. A finely tuned car, we all know when a car's misfiring, it doesn't sound very good, it doesn't run very well either. Why would you treat your body any differently? You do need to have periodic adjustments. Here's a classic example of this. I want to throw this slide in here. We had a young girl who was at the end of her school year party, which was actually a roller skating party. And she remembers that she actually went down. She said she had to dodge somebody and she slipped. And when she went down, she ended up hitting her head right into some kid's thigh. Just like basically like a straight on shot, like a football tackle, but like this. Boom! She said my neck just immediately made a bunch of noise and it hurt. And she came in here holding her head like this, and that's her first X-ray, right? Significant subluxation. This actually, I believe, was that was I think. I'm looking at the dates on these films here, but that's just a significant head shift and actually 10 back to right. We took care of this child just I think it was 6 weeks. And that's her post X-ray right there, right? Beautiful correction, out of pain. Now imagine that kid this is a very highly educated family that understands chiropractic well and uses it very wisely. They've been under wellness care since all these kids were young. But imagine this was a different family where this kid has this accident happen. The parents say, oh, you hurt. Let's give you aspirin, ibuprofen, whatever it is, and get the pain down, right? And the kid feels better and actually heals this way. And then they come into me in their 40s with that going on. Can you imagine what kind of work I'm gonna have to do? I mean, we're talking easily probably 1 to 2 years to take care of that, having just a matter of 6 weeks. So that's the beauty of you actually starting young and thinking proactively that way. So the question becomes is which kind of summer do we want to have? Do we want to have a highly stressed one where the kids are backseat drawing the lines of death, like don't cross this over, all sorts of stuff going on, eating all these foods that get them hyped up and whatever have you, or the best possible world where everybody's relaxed and having a great time no matter what we're doing, vacation or otherwise. It really comes down to the choices we make on how we're going to manage our physical, mental, and chemical stress, right? You guys come up with some great solutions already. If we put a pen to paper and think it through or do some good research, we can find out things there too. So, guys, it's not the end, it's the beginning. We've got just a few minutes left. The first thing we have to think about is what would we do to make sure that our family and our whole tribe, if you will, has a safe, fun, and subluxation-free summer. Thinking proactively, like let's say we actually do have a trampoline in our backyard and you can't see yourself getting rid of it. Could you at least put the nets up on the side, right? Something would keep the kid from actually flying off into the neighbor's lawn or onto the ground 3 feet below. That'd be a good thing. Having ground rules, right? You can ride this far from home, but I gotta be able to see you where you're at, right? Or if you're gonna take up skateboarding, you're also gonna take up helmets and elbow pads too, right? That'd be a good thing to take up there, right? Okay, so we think about those things. And then the next thing would be simply is that once we have it figured out for our family, the best thing you can do to serve humanity is what? Share with somebody else, right? This is I can pretty much my call every class is that whatever you've learned in this class has inspired you in some way. Don't just keep it to yourself and make it great for you. Share with other people because they will be so thankful for it too. I mean, I can't tell you how many suggestions we have taken in as parents and also as a caring family of chiropractic team in this office because somebody told us about something that worked really well, like a great resource. Today, I just heard about one today. I'm failing to recall what it is right now, but we actually sent a note on it. And I'm going to be passing this on to a lot of people that I know because I know that a lot of people who actually could use this in their families to make their lives better. So please, guys, make sure that you do the hard work on this thing. It doesn't have to be long, but just maybe draw a line down the page and say, here's the stressor, here's the thing we're going to do to make it better. And then try it. Of course, you can always fine tune too, right? So you tried it, so we almost got it right. The kid got the helmet and the elbow pads, but he skinned up his knees. We maybe get him knee pads too. I don't know. Whatever it may be. But just always make it better. You can always continuously improve, right? With that said, guys, I want to thank you for coming tonight. I hope that gave you some inspiration down how to care for your kids, grandkids, and all your various circles of influence. That newsletter actually has some tips for health this summer. Please read that. And if you would like a second copy, do you really like a second copy to pass along right now?
That's fine.
Okay, just photocopy it at work there and pass around there, or maybe post it in the break room. And then you can make other people's lives better too. Okay? With that said, guys, I'm going to turn you loose to the rain.
Yeah, thanks.
Run fast. Don't melt. Okay?
Okay.
Getting struck by lightning is definitely a stressor we don't want to have. Okay.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks for coming, Bill.
You bet.
It's awesome to have you guys here.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
See you soon.
Wanted to tell you, my best friend just broke both his arms Saturday.
Oh, no.
Doing what?
Kind of branch out of the tree, and the branch came down and wiped him out.
Like it took his legs out and he went down like this and broke them?
It knocked him off the ladder. He said his head was about 10 foot, probably. And he said he thought about it and thought that, you know, it could come down, but he thought he'd just cut it carefully, but it got it.
He had a chainsaw.
Wow.
Yeah, had a chainsaw. He said
Didn't
first
cut him?
thing he thought when he was falling was to throw the chainsaw.
Yep, for sure.
And he said he still landed about a foot from it.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
broke
now-
his wrist. He just had surgery on that today, and broke his arm up right up by his elbow.
Man, I'm thinking eating,
Oh,
personal
yeah,
hygiene,
they
brushing
told him,
teeth.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
they told him not to use his hands at all. So when I went and saw him Sunday, his daughter was feeding him. Another one
Oh, my
another
goodness.
one flossed his teeth for him.
Yeah.
I will share that, Bill. So I guess what's the takeaway from that, right? What, get help?
Hire
Yeah,
somebody.
if you
Do I-
think it's probably
Well-
going to be dangerous, don't do it at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to give you an idea, Bill, like when I look at that, I look at my backyard tree, which we actually did have trimmed out 5 years ago, I think it was, and it's starting to look pretty shaggy again, needs some help. I think to myself, I know I could get these lower hanging ones, but the consequence for it going wrong, which would be hard to imagine with the pole saw that I just do, or anything I would do, it might be pretty slim, but this is my livelihood. I
Yeah,
can't go
it's
like this, so I'm just gonna
not
hire one
worth the
person and
risk.
say, dude, have at it, you do it well, you do it better, faster, than I do it.
Yeah.
You know?
I'd hire somebody to do it.
And-
At my age, I'd hire somebody to
Yeah,
do it.
and my son got a free ride up in the cherry picker too. He loved that. You know,
Oh,
this-
really?
I was like,
Oh,
so what
that's
about
fun.
too? Yeah, so I'm like that. That's my easy solution. Reduce my stress, big time. All right, guys, you're great. Thanks for coming.